Good evening. United States President Trump has once again surprised the world with an announcement claiming significant agreement with Iran. Yet, from Tehran, a swift denial followed. What is truly behind these contradictory statements as a critical conflict unfolds? Just this past weekend, United States President Donald Trump issued a stern threat to Iran, warning of attacks on its energy facilities if Tehran did not reopen the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours. The strait, vital for global oil and gas transport from the Gulf states, has been a flashpoint. However, on Monday, the president made an abrupt policy shift. He extended his ultimatum by 5 days, citing very good and productive conversations with the Iranian side. President Trump stated that 15 points of agreement had been reached, though he provided no specific details. He announced that these discussions were set to continue this week. As is often the case in international crises, President Trump has relied on his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as key negotiators. Both individuals had previously engaged in negotiations with Iran in February, just prior to the United States and Israel commencing their current military operations. President Trump affirmed that Witkoff and Kushner are now in direct contact with an Iranian representative, but he did not disclose the identity of that individual. The New York Times, citing both United States and Iranian officials, reports that Witkoff is believed to have spoken with Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi in recent days. During these alleged discussions, Araghchi reportedly made it clear that Iran is not interested in a temporary ceasefire, but rather seeks a permanent peace, complete with guarantees that the United States and Israel will not attack Iran again. Furthermore, according to the New York Times, Araghchi is also insisting on the lifting of economic sanctions. However, the United States side had previously informed Iran during negotiations before the conflict began that sanctions could only be lifted if Iran made significant concessions regarding its nuclear program. From official Iranian channels, there has been a firm denial. Iran's parliament president, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, dismissed President Trump's statements as fake news, suggesting they are being used to manipulate financial and oil markets. Despite the public denials, the United States news portal Axios reports that Egypt, Pakistan, and Turkey intervened on Sunday to mediate between the United States and Iran, attempting to arrange a phone call between Ghalibaf and President Trump's team. Their objective was to facilitate a meeting in Pakistan, potentially involving Ghalibaf and other Tehran representatives, alongside Witkoff, Kushner, and possibly even United States Vice President J.D. Vance, potentially as early as this week. Separately, the United States broadcaster CBS News reports that Iran received a message from the United States government via intermediaries, a claim confirmed by a high-ranking Iranian official to the network. The specific contents of the United States message, however, remain unknown. The Wall Street Journal also reports on indirect talks, indicating that Iran has presented substantial demands for an end to the conflict. If one were to take President Trump at his word, there appear to be good prospects for an agreement. Yet, the source of his optimism remains unclear, as Iran's willingness to meet specific demands is not apparent. The United States accuses Iran of continuing its pursuit of a nuclear weapon, a claim Iran denies, emphasizing the civilian nature of its nuclear program. At the same time, Iran rejects halting uranium enrichment, a necessary step for building a nuclear bomb. The fate of already enriched uranium, which the United States wants removed from the country, also remains undecided. Before the conflict began, negotiations also focused on limiting Iran's missile program, particularly its ballistic missiles capable of reaching Israel. Iran had previously rejected such restrictions, labeling them a red line. After more than 3 weeks of war, the extent of Iran's remaining missile arsenal, launch facilities, and production sites is uncertain. President Trump implies that the arsenal and program have been virtually destroyed, asserting that the United States has achieved this war objective. However, outsiders cannot independently verify this claim. Another initial war goal was regime change. Despite the killing of numerous top officials, the Iranian regime has so far demonstrated stability, replacing those killed and intimidating the population with massive threats. President Trump, however, recently asserted that since all leading regime representatives have been killed, a regime change has already occurred. Iran, for its part, believes it holds a strong strategic position. While it is vulnerable to aerial attacks, with Israel and the United States having destroyed its air defenses, allowing them to strike targets without significant resistance, Iran has also observed how easily it can draw the entire Gulf region into the conflict, thereby placing immense pressure on the global economy, an impact that also reaches the United States. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu openly opposes a swift end to the conflict, distancing himself from the United States president. Netanyahu stated that while President Trump informed him of potential agreement opportunities, Israel will continue its attacks against Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon. He emphasized that Israel's interests must be protected under any circumstances. 3.5 weeks into the conflict, cracks in the United States-Israeli military coalition are becoming increasingly evident. Experts suggest that Israel's primary goals are regime change in Iran and the complete destruction of Iran's weapons arsenal to prevent future attacks on Israel. Suzanne Maloney, an Iran expert from the Brookings Institution, told the New York Times that for Israel, unlike the United States, the opening of the Strait of Hormuz is not a priority. She noted that Israel is less sensitive to rising oil prices and instead has a series of strategic objectives it believes it can now achieve, stating they want to see this through and try to finish their job. How this divergence will impact any potential talks between United States and Iranian representatives and whether an agreement without Israel's involvement is even feasible remains a pressing and complex question. What's your take on Trump's Iran claims spark confusion amid escalating war? Share your view in the comments. Do you think this will matter in the next news cycle? This video was generated using artificial intelligence.